Hmm. Yeah, well, thanks for spelling it out, John. We're gonna do a little bit of Q&A, so if you have questions, feel free to ask. We'll do a couple before we wrap up here. We have a question from Jono, which said, "What is Dr. Schneider's thoughts on the modern animal welfare movement, and how has this impacted his life?" So I don't know if you have any like how your views have been impacted, thinking about like animal suffering on like these questions, John.
Well, I mean, one way I've thought for a long time, even before I became aware of animal welfare as a movement, which I guess you could say it is. It's a relatively recent one. I've thought for some time that animal welfare should be a factor in our moral thinking, in our laws, our legal systems. It wasn't very long ago that in the handbook that was used by all veterinarians in England and the United States, they advised against using anesthetics. They didn't use anesthetics for surgery or for anything if they followed that recommendation. And part of the reason for that was that there's a very widespread belief that animals couldn't really suffer in a way that was morally significant. They didn't have minds of the sort that could enable them to suffer. And I've never thought that was true. Um, so, uh, having said that, I've had numerous friends who are very, very zealous about animal rights and animal welfare. And, maybe some of them go a little too far. I don't know. I tend to resist extremes. It's just kind of my nature. But yeah, I'm generally very much in favor of these developments. I mean, some of the factory farming. I think a lot of the stuff that goes on in factory farming is just demonstrably evil, and Christians should join others in certainly disapproving it, and if possible, reforming it. Um, I'm not a vegan. I don't believe it's immoral to kill and eat animals. Um, Always. I don't think it's inherently immoral and extrinsically wrong, but it's something we certainly should not take for granted. I mean, if an animal gives its life, we should see that as something sacred. Um, Killing plants too. I mean, it seems to me that there is a certain sense in all which plants have a right to live out their lives. And so we're killing one way or the other. But
Hmm.
the animal welfare thing, as a matter of law, I I generally think it's a very good thing. And the reforms that are being called for in factory farming. I mean, we still raise veal. I mean, there's just some disgraceful things that are going on. And I think alongside that, in parallel to those changes, we're learning more and more about the sophistication of animal minds. We're learning things about rats and chickens that make it impossible for me to think that these creatures don't suffer from certain practices that should certainly be eliminated or mitigated. If we're going to eat animals, we should certainly eliminate those practices.
Mm.